So Rex, can you tell us what's your involvement with peak teams?
Okay, so my involvement with peak teams has actually been since the foundation of the company in 2002, and I'm a lead facilitator, and I facilitate teamwork leadership development programs all over the world based around adventure themes and adventure sport.
Great. And then what type of programs do you have coming up with peak teams? I believe there's some new ones being developed at the moment.
Yeah, so we specialise in basically mountaineering, big wave surfing, safariing. We're doing a new one on cave diving right now that we're filming in southern Australia in Mount Gambier. I'm also trying to put together an expedition to Mount Shivling in the northern Himalaya, which is in India, and I want to film a new program on innovation, and that's a mountain climbing program, and then also moving into flight as well.
Wow, that's certainly a full load you have.
Yeah.
So what is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning then?
I don't know, the first thing I do is wake up in the morning is actually reach across and check my cell phone, which is terrible, but it's the truth, and I don't lie. I think many people are probably in that boat that just don't want to admit it.
Yeah, good point. And so do you like to train in the morning or the evening generally?
I'm a morning person for sure. I like to get to bed early. If I can get to bed at 9, 10 o'clock at night, I'm normally up at 6, and I like to do morning runs or swims or cycling if I'm home.
Great. What's your biggest love?
Biggest love? Anything outdoors and adventurous. I love basically, I don't know, hang on, let me think about that. You want a singular thing?
You can have
Can I just say life?
Yes, good answer.
I love life and all of the adventure it brings. I know that's really wide, but yeah, that's my single most love.
Well, you are an adventurer, so it makes sense. And what about a dislike?
Dislike? Traffic. Can't stand traffic. I'm patient generally in life, but when I'm in traffic, I just think it's a waste of life. So then, it's, going against what I love, so I get stuck. And that's I live in the mountains in Groveland, Pine Mountain Lake, right by Yosemite National Park in the States, and I choose to live out of the city just so I can be away from the combustion and traffic.
Muscle, that totally makes sense. So, you've done some amazing things, Everest, 7 summits, but talk to us about your wingsuits, and
okay.
If I can call you the Birdman.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I had a passion for mountaineering and loved rock climbing, loved mountaineering, loved being in the outdoors. That transitioned from having some sponsorship dollars left over from Everest and the 7 summits, and I applied that to skydiving. Love skydiving, always had a fascination with falling. Because as a climber, as a rock climber, you're always taught to hang on, and as a mountain climber, you're always taught to stay on the mountain. So I always wondered what it would be like to fall, so I started skydiving, loved it. I got a passion for that. Shortly after starting skydiving, I got a wingsuit, fabric wingsuit, and the first flight was mind-boggling. It was like, you're turning yourself into a human bird. It's the closest you get to being a human bird, and I've never looked back. So now, 10 years later, we're evolving the sport, and we've been designing new carbon fiber wings that strap to my back that allow me not only to fly like an airplane, but actually climb and descend and loop and roll and be a mini aircraft.
And so how high would you be in the air when you're starting?
So for the test jump so far, we've been starting at 12,000 feet above the ground. So it's nice and high, and that gives me the room and the time to fix any problems that come up. You're breaking new ground with this wing, so there's no manual for it. You can't read an instruction manual, and we don't really have the wind, like the money to go into a wind tunnel and test it completely. So we're trusting our design and our construction, and you just have to take the courage and jump out of the plane and fix something on the way down if something's wrong. So that's why we go from so high. When the engines are on, which they'll be on shortly, we'll be able to start from about probably 5,000 feet above the ground and maintain level all the way to canopy deployment.
Right.
So.
I mean, you talk about just trusting. How much of the sport do you think is mental toughness?
I love this question. I think any of the endeavours that I participate in, especially in extreme sports and adventure sports, 60% is mental strength, and the 40% is physical. Yeah. Right? You have to be physically fit to be able to keep your mental strength in check as well, so you can balance them both. But I strongly believe it's a lot more mental than, it's a little more mental than physical.
Yeah, no, I agree. What is your inspiration?
Inspiration, I guess, comes back to that life question. You know, for me, it's about wanting to live my life to its absolute fullest. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but it's. I think what we have is a real good gift, and I want to give it the best shot possible. And so when I try and embark on these big projects or take on these kind of dangerous things, it's not about being necessarily adrenaline addicted or adrenaline junkie, where many people will say, yeah, you're crazy, you know, you're an adrenaline junkie. It's not. It's about expanding the envelope of what can be done and learning from that and experiencing really as much as I can while I can in the lifetime that I have.
Great. And then do you take that through to your training with peak teams as well and try and impart that on participants?
Absolutely. So at peak teams, we really specialize in two categories: the rational side of things, which is more the business numbers, the strategy, the budgets, and how to execute on that standard business, strategy, numbers, all that sort of stuff. But where we really specialize is on the flip side of that, the emotional side, which is the heart, the passion. How do you get people invested from here about achieving those numbers? And so we look through different lenses. So we use adventure learning or simulations around mountain climbing, for instance, to talk about trust, teamwork, leadership, goal setting, vision, and then apply that back to the business. So take your climbing hat off, put your business hat on. Okay, we spoke this morning about the strategic priorities for FY17. How does this apply, and how can we integrate some of the learnings that we've learned from adventures all around the world and apply them to business?
Great, a different way of approaching
Yeah,
things.
It's different, and it's really effective because it allows people to open up and have conversations in a more powerful way other than just death by PowerPoint.
Yeah, great. What is your can't live without item in your gym bag?
My gym bag's pretty diverse. My gym bag is like a hanger, an aeroplane hanger full of different equipment for extreme sports. I think the most essential item would be a little knife called a hook knife, right? And in my sports, it's essential to have, because most of my sports are harness sports. So I've got a harness on, I've either got a parachute out or a speed wing out or something like that. And that knife is to cut any lines if I get entangled. And super essential for the X-Wing project, just in case something goes wrong.
Life-saving device.
Yeah, it is. I haven't had to use it yet, touch wood, but I always carry it. This most useless piece of equipment in my gym bag, but it's probably the most important, just in case I need to use it.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Top of mind, it would be, it's an interesting one. Top of mind, it was from a counsellor I was working with at one point in time. It would be, when you're feeling frustrated or angry or annoyed at something or someone or just the environment around you, before you're reactive, take a step back and look internal and ask yourself why. Why are you feeling the way you are before you react? And your reaction may be different.
Good. Everyone. That's applicable to everyone. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a smoked salmon bagel at the Boomerang Bar and a flat white coffee with a freshly squeezed orange juice.
Nice.
And I didn't use too much cream cheese. Maybe a little bit.
Who would you most like to train or train with?
So for mountaineering, I would have loved to train and work with Reinhold Messner, who was the first person to climb Mount Everest without oxygen. And he basically, when everybody said, that's impossible, you can't do it, he was like, screw it, I'll show you I can. And he did it once, and everyone went, whoa, that was a fluke, so he did it again. And then, he'd be really cool just to tap into his wisdom for mountaineering. For other sports, I'm really excited about training with a good friend of ours coming up this year, Mark Matthews, who's a big wave surfer, and we're going to be towing into some big waves at the end of this year, so I'm excited about that. But who would I love to train? Man, I don't know.
That's all right.
Maybe I'll think about that and come back to it.
You mentioned Mark Matthews, who's also a peak teams member as well. So do you guys work together on engagements or?
Very rarely, but sometimes, yep. So we have a simulation called Sea of Change, and we actually just delivered it yesterday in Penang. But it's a really cool simulation around surfing the largest waves in the world, and sometimes we've facilitated that together. and hopefully we'll build, and when we're talking about new simulations or immersive learning, we're going to build a new simulation, and we're going to be combining skydiving with surfing together.
Wow.
For the first time ever.
Wow.
So that would be exciting.
That's extreme.
Yeah.
Your number one favourite piece of fitness equipment?
My skis. Yeah, they are a tool for me, and I love them. I can climb up the mountains with my skins on, and so it's great fitness, and transports me back into the backcountry, into the wilderness, where my heart beats the hardest. And once I'm done with climbing up the mountain, I pull off my skins, clip on, and rip down.
And ski of choice?
Ski of choice is a Kessley, all different sizes. I have a quiver of them.
And favourite place to ski?
Probably France, probably Chamonix, but I have some really nice backcountry skiing right in the Sierras in my back garden. So I'd have to say the Sierras first, just because it's my home territory right now. But Chamonix in France is pretty amazing.
Okay. What's your top tip for someone aiming to be an elite athlete?
Again, go back to the mental strength. If you really, really want it, you need to be passionate about what you're doing, and follow that passion. To be a top athlete, it requires a lot of dedication, not just to the sport, but also to be a business professional as well. So to get in with the sponsors, to do that, you can't just be focused 100% on the sport. You need to be focused on what their return on investment is, how they're going to make money basically from you. And if you're focused on that, you'll be successful from a business standpoint and get the sponsorships necessary to fund the passion of the sport or the activity that you do. And to be a top athlete, then you need to put all the time and effort into training, dedicating 100% mental, physical, and get help, get good training, get people support you, build a network of people that can support you in different areas of the sport. And I think that's what it takes to make it.
Awesome, great advice. Clearly you've hit many of your own personal and professional goals over the years, but we figure you're always striving. What's the next thing on the list for you?
There's a couple of things on the list for me, which I'm really excited about. This year is really a year of pushing the envelope and the boundaries of what can be done, not only from a skydiving perspective, with the Rigid Wing project. We're going to be going down to Baja, Mexico in about 2 weeks, and we're going to be flying with jet power. So I'm strapping 2 jet engines to this little 6-foot wing that straps onto my back. And so we are taking it to a new level, and Justified, that sounds crazy, but when you add all the elements together, like what we were talking about before, when you're trained in each and every element, and then you bring them together, that it's actually relatively, it's not safe, but it's relatively controlled. And so we'll be putting all those elements together, should be able to fly like a rocket man. And I'm pretty confident it's going to work. I've tested it all up until the point of turning the engines on, and once the engines go on, the wing will start flying even better than what it's gliding. So that's one thing. The second thing is I want to do an expedition to Mount Shivling in September, and Mount Shivling's in the Indian Himalaya, and it's a beautiful mountain, very rarely climbed, and we're going to do a wingsuit base jump from the summit of Shivling. And the other thing's the Jeep project as well, which is the surfing project, landing a canopy on a wave.
Wow, yeah. Are you afraid of dying?
Yeah, always. Yeah. Many people say, yeah, absolutely. Many people say that you, as I said earlier, you're an adrenaline junkie, you must have no fear and stuff. It's absolutely the opposite to that. Yeah, I love adrenaline, and it's really fun, and that's part of it, for sure. I wouldn't say it's not, but fear keeps you alive in so many aspects, right? So fear allows your mind to wake up mentally to the risk that you're taking. And if you listen to that risk, you can truly analyze, okay, is this fear real, or is it something that you're just welling up inside your mind, and then something you need to overcome mentally? It allows me to look back and go, okay, have I checked off everything that I need to check off before going to do this? Am I trained properly? Am I feeling good in my mind? Is the environmental conditions around me right? Is my equipment right? All that stuff. And again, you can be the best in the world, I think, at anything, and at the same time, some of these things can bite you. You'll be climbing a mountain, and if an avalanche comes down, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's just the risk that you have to accept as an extreme sport athlete. But yes, I am afraid of dying. and I don't necessarily want to die doing extreme sports. My goal is to live till I'm old.
Okay, great, yeah, unexpected answer. Your favourite quote?
Those, I can't remember who said it, but we probably could look it up. Those who say it can't be done are being passed by those doing it. I read that before I went to Mount Everest when I was young. I was about 19 at the time, and I thought that was the coolest quote, and it stuck with me a long time.
That's good. And who would you most like to tandem skydive with? Or wingsuit with, or whatever you want to do with.
Rodeo with.
We'll just say jump out of the plane. You can do it any way you want.
I don't know. I could think of all these hot, sexy celebrities, but man, that's such a hard question. There's so many good people in the world. Who would I like to tandem skydive with? From a celebrity perspective, probably Natalie Portman. She's pretty hot.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know.
That's good, Natalie Portman's good. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I want to try and think of a creative one like the pilot, because that was the best one.
Yeah, it is a good one, right? Yeah.
Because a lot of the skydive planes, like everybody asks me about skydive planes. Why do you skydive? Why would you want to jump out of a perfectly good aeroplane? And I'm like looking at these airplanes going, half of them are pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Half of them are crap.
It's safer out there.
On the first 1,000 feet of taking off, I'm like, oh, get me up, because if this engine fails, I'm out the door in an instant. You know?
Yeah.
And this actually applies to my flying as well. It's like part of skydiving and part of learning to skydive is just in case something does happen, you won't be afraid to step out of the airplane. Yeah. So many pilots don't skydive and they're afraid of it.
They actually should.
Especially aerobatic pilots. And they're like, oh, I never want to use my parachute. Well, hell, you should train on that stuff, because if it ever breaks, I don't want to be hesitating.
Have you had any near-death experiences?
Yeah.
Close?
Yeah, a few. Especially in mountain climbing, actually. There's been a lot, because that environment, so it changes constantly. We talk a lot about that at peak teams, is how to survive or how to thrive in a very changing environment, and we use the metaphors to be able to do that. So mountaineering, you have avalanches that come down the mountain all the time. You've got serac breaks, you've got crevasses, you've got all that environmental change, and again, you can be the best climber in the world, but you're wrong place, wrong time, you can get yourself into trouble. So I've had crevasse falls where snow bridges have collapsed, and two of us have gone in the hole, and one of us has been hanging on to both of us. I've had avalanches come down where we've been in the whiteout. I remember specifically one in New Zealand. We were climbing on Mount Cook, and my brother and I were walking across the glacier in a complete whiteout. So couldn't see anything. We had this crack. It was a serac break, and it came ripping down the mountain, and we just didn't know where it was coming from. It was just thunderous noise of avalanche. And I just started to panic, almost panic. Like, I was pretty young, I was 19, and my brother just grabbed me by the collar, and he was a little old, 2 years older, but he's in the military, and he just said, stand still, don't panic. And just sat there waiting. And it didn't hit us, luckily. We certainly felt the wind from the avalanche, like the wind blast. And we walked back to the hut that afternoon, pretty shaken up. The next morning it had cleared, and our footprints were like about 200 feet from a humongous slide.
Oh,
so
wow.
Stuff like that happens,
and
it humbles you. It humbles you to know that, these sports are risky. Yes, this could happen, and even though you don't think it's going to happen to you, or you try and put that in the back of your mind, it could happen to you. So instead of putting it in the back of the mind, now I put it in the front of my mind, and it helps me. It helps you understand, like, yes, you still want to take on the sport, and yes, let's make sure we're doing it as much as we can to minimize the risk.
Yeah. And your wife is in the same sort of field, isn't she?
Aerobatic pilot, yeah. And so she flies high performance aerobatic planes, H540. It's the world's most high performance stunt plane. And she's in this, has to deal with the same stuff every day. I got grey hairs.
I want to know about what your conversation is over dinner every night. How was your day, honey? I'm nearly tired again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, I think